Hey guys, this is Should You or Should You, the show where we talk about books. And I'm your host, Mike Vaughan. Today's episode is about what I would consider a classic. It's a very old book, published in 1965, and it's by another Japanese author, and that's Yukio Mishima. And the book is The Sailor Who Fell from Grace with the Sea. Here's a nice little photo of him. You know, I was actually talking with my girlfriend about this book not 30 minutes ago, about how simple this story is. But there's a lot of hidden meaning that's not simple, and it's not easy to grasp. And the first time reading this book, I was in awe of how well written it was, how descriptive it was, how, you know, this guy could take something as bland and stale as I'm buttering a piece of bread and turn it into this glorious task, you know, just beautiful writing. I had to go back and read essays on this book about the different themes and things like that to really get an appreciation for the story and for the message. But before we get into that, alright, so I just wanted to show you guys the book real quick up close. I had mentioned earlier in an earlier video how much of a freak I am about collecting first edition hardcovers. And so I wanted to kind of show you guys what I look for, why I'm crazy about this kind of stuff. Again, from a collector's aspect, this book is in incredible shape. I got really, really lucky, so I kind of wanted to show you guys here. I mean, even the dust jacket, for being, 50 years old, looks incredible. Right, I mean, They've preserved the dust jacket knife. You have minimal tears. So you have minimal tears along the binding here, which is normal with books this old. But what's incredible about that is, there's nothing else. If you can see this, I don't know if you can see this or not. That's just in great shape. So let me kind of open it up and show you guys here. Front cover, or the inside of the front cover looks great. Pages are in great shape here. There's no tears. No tears on the pages. No binding's not coming out anywhere. See this? And everything is just in great shape all the way down to Yukio's beautiful smile there. Let me take it out of the dust jacket here real fast. Again, I can show you how, the dust jacket, it's been put in this laminate here, which preserves the, integrity of the book, of the cover, dust jacket. Let me put it aside. And this is just, it's classic. It's simple, but it's beautiful. Great logo, great design there. If I bring it over to the binding here, let me show you the binding here. I don't know if you can see how shiny it is, all the lettering here within this woven binding. It's just beautiful. With the little waves here. Just beautiful art. And you can just see the publication imprint there. Again, let me bring it up close so you can see. Awesome. Again, the book, you can see there's no tear. No tearing in the book. A little bit on the top here and on the corners. A little bit on the top here and on the corners, but nothing too bad. Let me put it back down. So I'm just going to open it up, and for those of you guys who don't, let me show you something actually. So I just wanted to show you the inside of the dust jacket here. You can see the price of this book back in 1965 was $3.95. Sounds actually a little expensive for back then, but on the inside of the book here, you can see I didn't pay $3.95. I I paid $75. That's okay. For those of you guys who don't know where to find what edition your book might be, I want to open it up and kind of show you. You can just see how beautiful this book is. The page and how the pages are starting to color on the edges from age. And if you were here, you would be able to smell this just strong aroma of just old book, and it's beautiful. I want to bathe in it. So the great title here, you can see all this, the publication stamp that I showed you on the actual book here. You can see who it was translated by, John Nathan. So just before the book starts, let me bring it up close. On the inside of the cover, just before the first chapter here, you'll find the publication data, such as publication year, the ISBN number, and all that good stuff. So here you can see the original publication was 1963, but obviously we know this book was published in America in 1965, but you can see here, first American edition. That's how you know you've got the good stuff. But I kind of wanted to give you guys an idea of what this font looks like. You might be thinking to yourself, who cares? Well, if you're a typographer, you care. And if you care enough to read about it, at the end of the book, you can find, much like there's a note about the author, so it has a brief biography of Mishima. This was in June 1965, so he's done a lot since then. You can find a note on the type, so you can find a note on the actual, the text in the book. A little bit about the author. Yukio Mishima is actually probably one of Japan's most celebrated authors. Tons of awards, tons of novels, a lot of which have been made into movies, actually. Yeah, so if I open the book up real quick to the back cover here, keeping in mind that this book was printed in 1965, so a lot has happened since this was written, but it says about 10 films have been made from his novels. Most notably, The Sound of Waves, which was put out in 56, The Temple of the Golden Pavilion, which was in 59, After the Banquet, which was in 1963, and Five Modern No Plays, 1957. Translated into dozens and dozens of different languages. Probably if you majored in literature at some point, you guys have probably had to read and dissect a book by Yukio. This is probably his most famous, most well-known, most celebrated novel. And like I said, it's a simple story. The whole time you're reading it, you're like I said before, in all the style and all of the way that he writes, but you're like, man, not a whole lot's happened. This kid's got a really, nihilistic set of friends or sociopaths, I don't know, whatever you want to call them. And he's got a single mom who runs a business, but not much else has happened. He likes boats. But like I said, there's a lot of different themes tied into this. So just to kind of give a quick overview, the book centers around a little boy. Well, I don't want to say little boy. He's 13 years old, so on the cusp of being a adolescent. But it kind of focuses on his skewed sense of morality, and him and his friends, actually. It's a group of 6 or 7 of them. He's the third ranked member of this group, third in command. But they follow this other boy named, actually you don't know his name. We just call him the Chief. And Noboru, who again is the main, I guess, protagonist in the story, even though he's not really a good guy, idolizes this Chief. This group, they're kind of driven by this rejection of common morality. They seem to have no real emotional connections to anything. They have no real relationships. Nothing is important to them outside of this kind of circle, this kind of group that they've got. So their group, their main vibe is the fact that society, I guess as a whole, the societal norms and roles or whatever are meaningless, right? They have a super nihilistic view on the world. They do weird things, for instance, the group of them, actually Noboru, the protagonist, kidnaps a cat, right? And he kidnaps a cat, brings it back to their little camp or whatever, and they decide to murder the cat. They all watch the Chief murder this cat. I mean, I'm talking gut this cat and take out all of its insides. And I guess upon watching this, Noboru kind of gets this notion in his head that murder will fill this like gaping hole, I guess, in society or whatever, kind of set the balance. He thinks like that's what's going to give him glory, right? And I guess that's sort of a main theme throughout the book, I guess, which we'll touch on a little bit later, how honor and glory, and how that's like the only thing, that's the only thing that matters to them. So anyway, that's kind of Noboru and his group of friends. Like I said, they follow this chief, bunch of nihilistic sociopaths, in my opinion. And anyway, Noboru's mom's name is Fusako, and her husband, which passes away, and he's been deceased for a few years at this point. She's kind of ready to start kind of building a normal life again, and whatever she considers normal, right? This is 1965, so you can imagine, it's the white picket fence, husband with 2 kids in the backyard playing, wife in the kitchen baking pie or whatever, right? She wants this return to normalcy. And so that's kind of like introduced to you in the very beginning of the book. So you can kind of assume that's something, she's going to be pursuing some kind of romantic interest. She actually owns this business. They sell, it's like a vintage or like upscale vintage boutique. So she runs this by herself. Well, Noboru is, aside from death and glory and nihilism, apparently, he does have one passion, something that he's really, really, really into, and that's ships. He loves the idea of the open ocean and that pursuit of, I guess, a higher purpose. And he's fascinated by everything that is ship related. I mean, he knows what everyone on the ship does, their titles, what does what, and so on and so forth. So, Fusako decides to take him to the pier, and the military's coming through, right? And typically what happens is they dock for a couple days, and then they're out at sea for another 4 or 5 months at a time, and they dock for a couple days and they're back out at sea. And they run into one of the other main characters in the book, who's a sailor, and his name is Ryuji. At least that's how I think it's pronounced. I don't know. I think Ryu from the Street Fighter games. But so Ryuji is a sailor, very accomplished, and again, Mishima goes back and kind of ties in this pursuit of glory, right? He talks a lot about how when the book switches to his perspective, it talks a lot about his love for the ocean, his love for an ever-changing life, his love for not being stuck. But he starts longing for, again, that traditional life, and he starts longing for his anchor, right? And that's kind of how it's described in the book. Well, they sort of bump into each other, and Fusako and Ryuji kind of hit it off. And it's, it's all bubblegums and rainbows at first, because they there's sort of a spark, and she loves his kind of, hyper masculinity, and, ooh, I'm a tough man, and blah, 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 blah. And again, Mishima kind of talks about, his idea of masculinity being this, like, this ultimate man or whatever. And so Noboru friggin' idolizes this guy, right? He's obsessed with him. He's like this hero, for the fact that he embodies everything that Noboru admires, everything that him and his group admires. And he's so proud to have met this guy, this sailor who has been all over the world and who's lived this life at sea and just this really admirable guy. Bro is really excited to go back to his group of sociopath friends and show off this new guy that he's met, this new man that his mom's dating. And that's sort of how that relationship gets started. Well, I'm going to skip over a few things, but Noboru has this this peephole in his closet dresser. I mean, he basically has to climb into his dresser to look through this hole, but it's a straight shot into his mom's room. It's really weird. He's kind of obsessed with watching his mom. And so the first night that Ryuji and Fusaku kind of get intimate, he watches them the whole time. He's obsessed with it. Very strange. You can tell something's not quite right. But anyway, so Ryuji decides, or actually his time on land is up, so he's got to go back out to sea and set sail or whatever, and they get to go and see him off. And so he leaves, and everything is seemingly a-okay. And Noboru is, he goes back to his group and he talks about how valiant this guy is, and how, he's this like, hero, right? Well, something that happens when Ryuji comes back to shore, because he comes back after a few months, and he starts linking up with Noboru's mom, because while he was gone, they exchanged letters back and forth. So they got to know each other. They end up falling in love and whatever. So Ryuji goes back to shore. He decides, he's not going to set sail anymore. He wants to settle down and get married, and he wants to have this life with Fusako. And Fusako's down with that because A, she loves the guy. B, they got a rockin' sex life. And C, she needs somebody to run her store, to be the manager at her store. So he's kind of got this setup, right? They've decided that. Noboru doesn't know that that's going to happen, but you can kind of get the sense that when it does, something's going to happen that is not very cool. And so, Ryuji is at his house, and Noboru tells him and Fusako that he's going somewhere, but he actually ends up going to meet up with his group of friends, unbeknownst to Fusako and Ryuji. Well, Ryuji's on a walk during the day, and he's kind of freaking out a little bit about this new life that he's gonna get started. He's thinking about everything that he's given up on the sea, and all the years of his dreams and all that stuff. Well, it's a really hot day, and he decides, I'm sweaty and I want to cool down, and there's a fountain here, and I'm gonna get in this fountain. And I'm gonna cool off. And Noboru and his group of friends are walking up as Ryuji's getting out of this fountain, and they run into each other. And Noboru is kind of like, what do I do? Because, I'm supposed to be here, but I'm not, and I just ran into Ryuji, who's like kind of my stepdad now. And Ryuji's like drenched in water, soaking wet. And you would think that Noboru would be concerned about being caught alive. He's not. He's infuriated by Ryuji's appearance. He's infuriated by Ryuji's attempt to treat him like a son. He thinks it's the most despicable thing in the world, which kind of ties into a minor theme in the book where this group of kids view fathers. They view their fathers and father figures as like the worst. So Noboru, he perceives Ryuji's appearance as undignified, and he's embarrassed, and he's like, how could I talk you up to these guys so much, and you completely embarrass me like this? So anyway, once Noboru finds out that Ryuji is set to marry his mom and is going to manage the store and give up all of his dreams and all his life on the water or whatever, it really kind of estranges him from Ryuji. Like he was pissed about the being drenched in water thing, but whenever he started talking about the ocean and talking about the sea and ships, Noboru would be ecstatic. He'd forget all about it. But once this happens, Noboru is like, that's it. I can't follow this guy anymore. And he tells his group of friends about it, and the friends are like, this guy, he was so glorious in Noboru. Don't you want him to return to glory? The chief's like, don't you want him to be, revered? Noboru's like, yeah, I guess. And if you remember back to what I said a few minutes ago about them tying death into glory and honor, they see as the only way to balance the scales, to return this guy, to greatness, is through death. And so they kind of plot out this scheme, to trick him into telling, recounting stories and things like that. And then I'm not going to give the ending of the book, but I will say that, again, it's another one of those books that not really a happy ending in it. Going back to the themes in the book about glory and honor, in the beginning of the story, prior to Ryuji and Fusako falling in love and him giving up his life on the sea, Ryuji's appearance, his presence, his, whatever, is usually associated with gold, whether it's gold in his uniform or, a hue of gold or whatever the case is. And they tie that back a lot to, different connotations of triumph and glory and things like that. He's very highly respected by Noboru. He's very highly, I guess, admired and longed for by Fusako. So Ryuji's pursuit of this glory, via the means of setting sail and, taking the journey on the ocean, it's really important to Noboru at first, right? And so I've probably given up a little bit more of the story than I would want to. And if you're thinking like, you didn't really tell us much. You didn't really tell us much of a story. A kid's got a weird group of friends. His mom's single. She starts dating this sailor. He quits sailing. The kids hate him. It sounds really simple. But like I said before in the very beginning, the way that Mishima encodes everything through metaphors and through several different types of imagery, the entire time that you're reading it, you're kind of just engrossed. You're kind of just hanging on every sentence because every single sentence is constructed so beautifully. So, should you read The Sailor Who Fell from Grace with the Sea by Yukio Mishima? Yeah, I think you should. I think it's a great book. I think it's extremely well written. If you love kind of digging deep and analyzing literature, you're gonna love to do that with this book. It's awesome, and it's timeless. It reads just as well as today in 2018 as it did in 1965. That's all I have for you guys for now. I'll be back in a few days. If you have any suggestions for me, you can find my email in the description of this video. Go ahead and shoot me an email. Let me know what you got. Love to pick it up. Well, anyway, that's all I have for you guys. This has been Should You or Should You? Yukio Mishima, The Sailor Who Fell from Grace with the Sea, and of course you should. I'm your host, Mike Vaughan. Take care.